Today, as we are coming to the very end of the year, I just want to remind us. God was reminding me actually over the past few weeks about the need to set goals that are spiritual goals, set a focus once again on the goals. And it's very apt because this is a time of the year when we, as communities, as children, as parents, as teachers, uh, as students, as people who are working, we all set goals in this year. And that happens in every single stage of our life. We sort of set goals that are that are focused towards developing our skills, that are focused towards developing our material wealth, or goals that are focused towards developing our careers. For example, if it's a student, they set goals towards finishing certain subjects in this next coming year. And we also give it a really good name. It's known as resolutions. And we try to keep at it, right? And this is that time of the year. And uh, God has put it in my heart over the past few weeks that Jifin, set your goals right once again, because the year is coming too close and a new year is starting. And 2022, we don't know how it's gonna be. We don't know what life is gonna throw at us. And God was reminding me constantly to refocus myself. And today, I just want to share a small thought about a few people who were really focused, laser focused on the goal that was set to them by God. And these people, uh, we can see how God loves them, how God, the blessing that God has showered upon them, and also how these people will endure and stay focused through very tough, very challenging times. For that, let's turn our attention to Hebrews 11, verse 37 to 38. Um, they were stoned, they were sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains, in dens and caves of the earth. I, I just want to focus on the words of whom the world was not worthy. In my Bible, in the NKJV version, a title is given to this passage, this certain section, and uh, the meaning of that title is the story of the overcomers, the people who overcame. Hmm. Uh, they the entire chapter, if you look at it, it speaks about a lot of forefathers of our faith, people who set out having nothing or sometimes having everything. Okay, stepped out in faith, following the calling of God. And these people, as we read the entire chapter, we can see how great that calling and how great, uh, what was the great suffering that these people went through. You know, they went through so much trouble over their lifetimes while pursuing the goal, that God said that they were ostracized by the communities. They were not considered to be worthy by anyone around them. They were condemned. You know, Isaiah was cut in half uh, when he had achieved martyrdom. So these were all men of God. They were all focused on the goal, men of God who achieved the goal. And one specialty that you can see about these men is the fact that they have not fully known Jesus Christ. They have not fully known about Jesus Christ. They've only seen shadows or portions or examples, and they were all looking forward to that promise which God had promised them. Eh, but still, without not fully understanding the depth of the salvation that was offered by Jesus Christ, they endured every single pain that was thrown their way. That is what was surprising to me. We've all been called by God through Jesus Christ. We know that there's a God who loves us. We know fully that there's a salvation that's offered through Jesus Christ. These people did not know it fully. They knew it in shadows. They saw things in shadows, and they still gave up everything. They counted everything that they had as worthless for that calling. And that is surprising. Many times we are focused on the world. I myself am focused on my career. I myself am focused on every single thing that is available on the world. But for God to call me, or to tell of me that the world was not worthy of Jifin, this is, my focus should not be on anything but heaven. So that is the I just want to go through the lives of these people and just slightly try to explain what propelled them or what pushed them forward. The first thing that pushed these people forward was their focus on the goal and their faith. They were all men of faith who were extremely laser focused on the goal. In Hebrews 11 verse 13, we can see these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. They are assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. When you look at the life of Abraham, Abraham was not a common person. He had everything. At that time, whatever was there on the world, in the world, he had all the wealth, he had all the authority, he had men who would go to war for him, men who could defeat nations for him. Still, he considered it all worthless. He stood afar and he lived a life of a pilgrim. He kept journeying towards a goal that God called him to, or he did not put his hope in anything of this world. You know, these people, that is the challenge that we all face in our daily lives nowadays. We all become covered by or focused on the things of the world. We focus on the things of the world, that like our jobs, our careers, or our wealth, or our studies, or anything. All these things are important, very important. But why are we doing each and everything? And while we are doing everything, know that that is not our goal. And when we define faith, when people define faith, often people say that, uh, invest something for God and then gain 100 times more, or invest or put forth something in faith and God will bless you. And all of those blessings are focused on physical blessings. All of those words of encouragement are focused on physical blessings. I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't. But what I'm saying is, above all that, our faith should define our focus on the heavenly calling. God did not give us this faith and this opportunity just for us to spend time focusing on the things of the world, but for us to ensure that we remain constantly focused on the goal, and that goal is the heaven. you know uh, these these people, his faith, Abraham's faith, was so real that he believed and he acted in that way. you know when we say to believe and act, we all believe, like, take a step in faith. That's really good. But how many of us taking a step in faith while walking towards a heavenly goal? If, for example, if heaven is our goal, then none of the earthly possessions will really matter to us. How many of us are really taking a step, counting all those as nothing, while moving towards a goal that was set by our Father? And that's a question that God asks me these days. you know uh, am I counting everything of this world as nothing? Am I taking that step of faith? That is a step of faith that God wants us to have. It's not just to gain physical blessings, not just to gain some worldly possessions, but to take a step in faith for something that we cannot see and achieve on this earth. So that is the first thing that I learned, these men were men of faith, and their faith was not for the things of the world, but for the things of heaven. And second thing, out of all these people, when you look at their lives, they were all minorities. They were not a huge bunch of people, right? Uh, in Numbers chapter 14, verse 10, uh, in Numbers chapter 14, on the whole, we can see that um, Israel had actually sent out Joshua and Caleb and 10 other people to spy on the land of Canaan. And when they returned and they said a news that was not pleasing to the people, they took up stones and they were willing to stone them. You know, they were willing to kill these two young men who took a step in faith, that these two people believed that the end goal was not to arrive somewhere or just get freedom from Egypt, but also to possess the land that God called them to be in. And these two men 100% believed that, and they stood out and they spoke, and they were sure about that, and they stood out, and they were apart, they were separate from the rest of the people. And when they were willing, the people were willing to stone them. You know, uh, we all speak a language of data nowadays. uh, uh, if you look at the data, I think it's not even 1%. It's like out of 200,000, 300,000, maybe more than that people, out of those many people, only two stood in faith, believing that God will take them or give them possession over the land of Canaan. You know, when we are 100% believing, the funny thing is, the entire generation of people, every single one of them who had arrived at the border to Canaan, they all had set out with the same goal, right? They all had set out after the same calling. They all had set out after the same, hoping to arrive the same destination. But only two believed that they would do that. You know, only two had the faith that God would give them the possession. Only two are really focused on the God. You know, uh, such things are actually really, really, really crushing or scary as a believer or as a child of God, because if only out of the entire generation of people who saw miracles like the Red Sea splitting, uh, who ate manna, who saw those many great blessings live in with their own eyes, out of those people, if only two were focused on the God. And this is such a very scary thing, because God is reminding us how many of us are really, 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 from the depths of our heart, focused on the goal. Because there are chances that we might be pressing on. God has been reminding us through his servants to press on each and every week. From the beginning of the year, God has been saying, press on towards a goal. And God has been asking me, Jifin, what is the goal that you're pressing on towards? You're running. You're on the journey. You're at the gate, at the entrance to your destination, or you're at the final stage. But are you sure you're focused on the goal? Are you sure you want to be there? So uh, that's one very painful but very hard truth that we ourselves, as believers, we need to evaluate. If you look at Abraham, if you go back to Hebrews 11 verse 14 to 16, we can see that for those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had the opportunity to return. but now they desire a better, that is a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Abraham had all the opportunities in the world to return to where he came from, where he set out from, because he faced so many challenges. Joshua and Caleb had all the opportunity in the world to stand with the rest of the people, to go back, huh? Like the rest of the people. The rest of the people wanted to go back, or they wanted to settle somewhere else, which was more uh, free or more or less dangerous. You know, it's the world will keep pulling us back. The world is always there. We can always go back and settle in this world and live a happy and peaceful life. But that's not the goal. Our destination should not be focused on this world. And if at all by chance, if you do that, the an entire generation of people, they lost out on the promised land. They never entered the promised land. So that is my humble message that God has put in my heart today. As we, as Christians, as we journey towards a goal, uh, reevaluate, what are we pressing towards? Are we focused? Are we extremely laser focused on the goal, or by mistake uh, have we turned our eyes to the possessions of the world? Uh, or as we face challenges, the people of God who stepped out, they did not have an easy ride. They had very tough lives. You know, they often had to travel for many years, multiple decades. A few weeks ago, we learned that Elijah was alone for most of the time of his ministry. Sometimes you might be even a minority, when just less than 1% out of all the people on this world, or out of all the Christians in this world. But if you decide to endure all those trials, if you decide to endure all the desperate situations, if you are 100% sure and focused on the goal that God has called us to be, called us towards, then no matter what the troubles, no matter what desperate situation, no matter how bad it gets, God will give us the grace to endure it all, because our home is not this home. Our home is our heavenly home. And each and every day we are taking steps towards it. So I once again humbly request all of us to refocus our lives towards the heavenly destination. And also remember that one day it would be the greatest privilege that we will have in our lives if God one day calls each and every one of us by name and tells about us that we are the world was not worthy of us. That is a great honor. That is the greatest privilege. You know, uh, we were given as special gifts from God to this world, but the world did not recognize that. So if you are troubled by anything, if you are troubled by your achievements, your career goals, or if you're anything, any problem that is troubling you, my dear friend, God is telling that you are a special gift for the world. And God will definitely, the one who called you, if you're focused on the God, he will take you through. May the Lord bless us all through these words. Thank you.